I am astrologer Kelly Kasle, and this is your May 2023 forecast. Isn't it crazy that we've made it to May already? I'm sitting here in a tank top now for the first time in a while. It's finally warm and sunny outside, so this feels good. If you enjoy these forecasts, please subscribe so you get notified whenever a new one comes out. And if you gain any insights from this video today, make sure that you like the video and then send it to a friend. Let people know that I'm doing these videos. I would be so appreciative. We have lots of fun things to talk about today, but before we jump in, just a quick announcement. In the month of May, I am running a chart readings course. It is starting on Sunday, May 7th. I believe it's 8 classes long, if I remember correctly. If you go to the link on my website, you either go to the courses link or the events link. You can sign up for there, see all the dates, the list of classes. So I'm running this course for the same price as an Astrology Soul Blueprint Reading. So if you are someone who has been getting into astrology, you really enjoy starting to study astrology, you're one of those people who is always asking their friends, what is your chart and what are the elements of your chart? This is a chance for you to work with me in a small group setting on learning how to read charts. We will get to spend lots of time looking at the elements that we are discussing in your own charts. So essentially, if you want to come and just take this course with me, you're going to get a very similar experience as coming and doing a soul blueprint reading with me, except you're going to walk away with the skills to actually be able to read charts yourself. So if you are one of these people, if you have a friend who really enjoys doing astrology, this is going to be a small group setting, very interactive. I'm going to take you through all of my methods, the tips and tricks, all the really cool things that I know about charts that I look for, that you're just not going to read in any book or online blog. These are the things that I had to go and find a teacher to learn. Kind of the more hidden stuff that's really not talked about in how astrologers can know so much about a person by reading a chart and making predictions using charts. It's going to be tons of fun. Again, it starts on Sunday, May 7th. I am hoping to have a group of at least 5 people in this class. You will have access to all of the recordings. So if there's like a couple classes that you can't make it to, you can just go back and watch the recordings. But I am very much looking forward to running this course. Check it out. Okay, so jumping into this month, and just as a reminder with this show, I'm going to give you a little bit the themes for the month. We're going to go through day by day in the month, and I'll actually get to show you the charts, which for those of you who are learning astrology, I recommend following along and looking at the things that I'm pointing out and start to learn the lingo. And then I have journal prompts for each month as well. So you can go through the journal prompts and then let me know on social media or in the comments what did you see come out of this month. So to start off, we're actually going to do something a little different. We are going to look at the human design for this month because I think that it describes the themes so well. So you might know or you might not know that I do human design readings as well. But I always start off doing the astrology first. And the reason for that is when we're looking at an astrology wheel, the houses and the zodiac sign, because essentially the houses come from the zodiac signs. But if we're talking about the houses specifically, they take us through this story of life and they go through all of the specific areas of our life and our being, our self-identity, our career, our relationship to friends, to spirituality, our relationships, our creativity, our body. So you very easily see and can comprehend just by looking at an astrology wheel what areas of life are going to be really important to a person and going to be areas in their life where they learn a lot of lessons. Whereas if you look at this body graph, unless someone has taught you, and unless you've learned all of the gates, all of the centers, how all the gates and the channels connect, just by looking at this, you can't grasp those themes as quickly and easily. And this goes so much more into a person's personality as opposed to their overall life, that it's hard to get that sense. The other important reason for those of you out there who perhaps are human design readers, you're getting into human design, and one of the really important aspects why you should learn astrology as well is that all of this information actually comes from the astrology wheel, right? Ra Uru turned the astrology wheel, which here it is, into this body graph. So he just reimagined it in a different way. And so it's really important to get to know the planets from the astrology perspective to understand what they all mean. And when I'm looking at an astrology wheel, all of the angles between the planets, all of what you see inside here, if you see planets grouped up together, are super, super duper important. And they showcase the relationship between the two planets, whether it's a harmonious relationship or a non-harmonious relationship. And remember that the planets represent aspects of your own being. So perhaps your sun and your moon are in square, or your sun and your Mercury are in square. That's going to mean that how you naturally project your aura and energy in the world is at competition with how you communicate, how you speak, or in terms of your moon, how you feel internally. Internally, you're going to feel like there's always these two parts of your being that are kind of competing against each other for attention or wanting to go in two different directions. So you can really only see that and understand that looking at all this information in this way as opposed to this way. You're just not going to get that same information. So if you're a human design person out there, learn astrology too. That's my recommendation. And if you're an astrology person, learn some human design. At least learn the basics. It is very, very helpful. Okay, so looking at the month of May from the human design lens, what we see over here on the right, unfortunately, my software doesn't just pull out the transits. So like here's my chart over here with it. But anything you see in blue is where the planets are sitting now. And we're going to go through a few of these. So if you think about right now, the month of May, which is spring, we're in Taurus season. We're in like a mega Taurus season right now because we have the North Node in Taurus. We have this Mercury retrograde happening in Taurus starting off this month, and Uranus in Taurus. So right now, the focus of the collective is very much on learning how to be more receptive, tapping into our feminine energy. We always look at wherever the North Node is, we look at what the dispositor, here's your first vocabulary word of the day, the dispositor of the North Node, which you find by looking at the sign of the North Node, in this case Taurus, and finding the ruling planet of the North Node, which is for Taurus, Venus, the feminine energy, our feminine receptive qualities. So right now, the whole collective is having to look at how to be a more receptive being. And if you are expressing your feminine aspects in a healthy way. Now, what's so interesting, what's kind of throwing a wrench in all of this is that the planet Uranus is sitting here in gate 2 in the receptive gate. And remember, Uranus is the rebel, the one that brings unexpected things, shakes things up, wants you to see a new perspective, learn something new. And since it's sitting down here in 2, it's asking us to learn how to be receptive in new ways, to clear out our channels. And it's going to be here for a while. Now, some other key planets to look at, okay? The North Node, so not a planet, but kind of this important point between the sun, the moon, the earth that we look at is down here in the sacral, right? Which your sacral center is where the womb of a mother would live. And it is in this 27th gate of being the nurturing caretaker. It's the gate of selflessness, of altruism, the caretaker. So it's essentially having our whole collective looking at, I would say right now, especially how are we taking care of Mother Gaia, our own mother, our earth mother, down here in this sacral energy. What is also really interesting, what's connecting our root energy to our sacral energy. So we need the fire, the heat of the root center. Our root center also keeps us grounded, but it also can store stuck emotions. We have this gate here connected, which is the gate of maturation, which I think is a really funny word. But this gate of maturing here between gates 53, which Mars is sitting here. This is a Cancer gate, which is specifically, if I remember, the gate of, of maturing. What is... Oh, of development. Okay. Yeah. So of maturing, of developing. With Jupiter, which is at the very end of Aries in gate 42, it's so interesting. They call this the gate of celebrating accomplishments. So it's almost like, okay, if you think about in Aries, how you have your first thought. Aries is when the first thought comes out of the unknown, comes out of the dark into the light, and starts creating. So at the end of Aries, it's like you have taken your first steps and you get to take a moment to celebrate before going on to the Taurus, which is the building phase. You know what it is you want to build. Now you have to start using your hands, and slowly over time, right? Taurus is the bull. It moves slow. It's big. It's taken these big steps, but it's going to take time. You're not just going to build overnight. So we're being reminded of that theme right now with all of this Taurus energy too, with Uranus kind of stirring up. But I think this celebrating accomplishments along with the nurturing, caretaking energy, those two that are connected. You know, now that Pluto has moved into Aquarius and we've gotten this first taste here in this last month, because Pluto moved into Aquarius on March 23rd and it's retrograding back in, I think, next month. Back into Capricorn for the rest of the year, and then it's going to come back. But we're just starting to get these first tastes, right? So we've seen now the government is fully talking about UFOs, and they're talking about wanting to go to the moon, building new space programs. ChatGPT has come out. We have all these conversations of AI, but on the flip side of that, because Aquarius flips things, we are also seeing the reversal, for example, of political allies that we thought would have been our allies for a long time. Like, so for example, when the American Revolution happened, France became one of our main allies. Now, the flip side of that, France is saying, oh, I don't know that we need to exchange in US dollars anymore. And I don't really know if we want to be America's friends anymore. I think we want to build up our own armies and be more self-reliant. So that's getting flipped on its head. And all of these different allies are shaking up right now, which is what happened in World War II as well, because we've got the World War II energies happening right now. So we're just getting like the first little glimpses. We'll go back into Capricorn land. So we're going to see more big news about big companies whenever it goes back into Capricorn. One other thing with this reversal, as Saturn moved through Aquarius in like end of 2021, 2022, that's when all of the stuff on COVID was happening. And we thought that we were going to have this saving grace technology, if you know what I'm talking about, that was going to save all of us. And turns out that is not the case at all. And it may actually be causing a lot more harm than good. And now that Saturn is up here in Pisces, people are going to have to come to terms with their subconscious fears. If they made this decision to do the thing out of some subconscious fear, now in these next 3 years with Saturn in Pisces, they're going to have to deal with the consequences of that fear, of making a decision from fear. So this is kind of just the beginnings of these times. My guess is a lot more, well, actually towards the end of this month, when we hit this finally big square we'll talk about between Pluto and Jupiter, I think that we can all feel that we know we have to keep moving. We have to keep building and just taking those steps day by day to build these new things, kind of get in the rhythm of what this new Earth feels like. However, it feels in Taurus season like you are just sludging through mud. It feels slow and you don't quite know where you're going yet. Nothing is really clear yet. You're going off of impulse. You're going off of intuition, that feminine intuition. Thankfully this month, or at least for a couple more weeks, Venus is in Gemini, making things feel very social. This is a very different energy, having Venus in Gemini, than when Mars was in Gemini. So kind of notice the differences there. Mars in Gemini stimulated more of your mind, where Venus in Gemini stimulates more of the social settings. If we go back to the human design, so we still have Pluto. Pluto is going to be in that 60th gate of, what do they call it? Limitation. Let me look at the exact word for it. Let's see over here. Yeah, limitation is what they call it. That 60th gate of limitation for quite a long time. Because let's see, when is through 2 degrees. Yeah, so for 2 degrees of Aquarius. So it is going to be there for like another year, essentially. So we have to, whenever you're making a diamond, which is another very Taurus thing. Taurus love diamonds. Actually, I just recently met a Taurus who literally works at a jeweler making diamond rings and stuff for people. But we have to remember, to create a diamond, it goes through this alchemical process of a bunch of dirt getting compressed together, lots of heat. And after going through this hot pressurized process, then it comes out as the diamond. You have to limit things, make things smaller, take things away before something new comes out. Just like the butterfly going into the cocoon. It gets all squished in there. It becomes real dark. It goes through this whole process and then it comes out as a butterfly. And that's what all of humanity is going through right now. And if you look at where Neptune is sitting over here in this solar plexus gate that we call compassion during crisis. I would say that's a pretty good representation of what we are going through right now, is having to learn how to have compassion for people that don't necessarily share our same views, while all of Earth is going through some crisis, which in terms of studying the astrological wheel, the very end of Pisces is whenever you go through the final death. So as opposed to Scorpio is when you go through a transformational process to transform into the next version of yourself. In Pisces, you completely die. You go back to the dark, back to source, and then you come out as a whole new thought, which could certainly feel like a crisis, right? We all fear death because it's going into the unknown, into the dark. We don't know what's on the other side. So I think that is a very appropriate theme that we are dealing with right now as well. Saturn also, just like the last ones to note, Saturn is in this 55th gate down here, also in the solar plexus in Pisces, in abundance spirit. It's the abundance of spirit. It's the gate of freedom. And I love that Ra put this gate in the solar plexus because freedom is really more of a feeling. And this is where, when you do your meditations, sound baths, when you're doing your subconscious reprogramming work, which is also very Piscean, so you're going to have a lot of opportunities in these next 3 years to work on dealing with all of this subconscious clutter that's in here. But you have to learn what freedom feels like. The energy field creates the physical form. So you got to work with the energy field first, and energy communicates in feeling, in our senses and in our emotions. So this is a perfect time to work with your senses, work with heightening your senses, working on your sensitivity to energy. I'm actually running a class called my Moon Cycles Workshop right now, and anyone is invited to attend the class 4, which is a moon meditations class, where I'm going to be teaching some of my own favorite exercises for increasing your sensitivity. That is Tuesday, May 9th. So if you'd like to join that class, even if you don't want to take the Moon Cycles class, but the class has been very fun itself. If you want to learn about the moon, if you want to start to learn about how we work with a planet as it goes around the chart and then interacts with your chart, the moon is a great first place to start. Take my course and you'll learn a lot there. But join us on May 9th for a meditation. So Neptune is in this, blurring these lines of what does freedom mean? Who knows what is freedom supposed to represent right now? Who's free? Who controls the power of freedom for people? So Neptune is putting this huge veil over what is this meaning of freedom, and it's going to be there for another year. So these are kind of the main themes for this month. We start off this month, of course, we are in eclipse season. We have the build up to the big eclipse on May 5th. So let's kind of start to talk about the days, day by day. So as we start here on Monday, May 1st, I love that we're starting May on a Monday. We have a moon in Virgo. It is opposing the Neptune energy. So emotionally and internally, you may be feeling like, I need to be super picky about everything. I need to clean. However, don't get too stuck in that energy. With Mars still in Cancer the rest of this month, we don't want to get tied into our emotions too much. We're starting this month off, the last big planetary energy that we can really feel still left in Aries is Jupiter. We're going to talk about when that's going to, move this month as well. But we start this May 1st off with all of this Taurus energy. We're in this Mercury retrograde in Taurus. How has this felt for you guys? Let me know in the comments. This one has not been so bad for me with communication with people. It's been a little bit slow. Like maybe it'll take 3-4 days for someone to get back to me, which is fine. However, little technology stuff has been awful for me, and perhaps it's because it squares all of my Aquarius energy. But tech stuff has just been really annoying in this last week. So we're in this Mercury retrograde until the 15th, but we have this build up to our eclipse. Now, something really interesting just as we start off here, we have this quincunx, which is kind of an odd energy. It's always something in someone's personality that comes out as like a quirk between Saturn, which is limiting our Piscean energy, our dreamy energy, our connection to spirit, and Lilith. And it's this exact quincunx, which Lilith in Leo is, remember, like, it's our dark side. It's the fiery woman, which is kind of like the very Uranus and Taurus energy. It's very Lilith energy. Wants to do her things her own way, wants to express love in her own way. But Saturn over here in Pisces is saying, no, sorry, you can't do that. So that's just kind of interesting. You may be feeling that a little bit. We have this square between the North Node and Jupiter and Pluto just getting tighter by the day. So this is part of the buildup that we are feeling. Luckily, we're starting off with a nice sextile between Venus and Jupiter here. So those two energies are the masculine and the feminine are working together. So that will feel good, and it will feel good once the moon moves into Libra as well, especially now that we're out of all of the Aries energy. This moon won't be opposing so much anymore. Because I have found with Chiron, whenever there is a serious angle made to Chiron or a planet transiting right over it, that is when all of the collectives are in yourself. That is when some sort of wound kind of gets rubbed. You know, if you've scraped yourself or you've broken something, you know, you've hurt something and you accidentally scrape that part of your body, you bump up against something and you're like, oh, ouch, you know, that hurt. That is what a major angle made to Chiron feels like. Some sort of kind of trigger and wound gets brought up. So it's not one of those planets that we feel per se as it's transiting, because it takes so long to go around. It's a 50-year transit, but we feel it when it's strongly aspected. So luckily we're not feeling so much of that anymore, because last month, right, we had the Sun, Mercury, Jupiter, all there. It was a lot of Chiron Aries energy. Now, when we move through the second, this build up to this eclipse is where we're like almost there. We can feel it, right? Whenever we have a build up to a full moon, I always feel that energy intensifying anyways. Now, another important thing to note, Mercury has fallen behind the sun. Whenever I'm looking at charts, anytime a Mercury is ahead of the sun, that is someone whose mind is always way ahead of whatever they are speaking about. They're the person who will have to go, wait a second, hold on, I need to organize my thoughts. Okay, now I can talk. So now that it is behind the sun, it is trailing and collecting information from behind to bring back to the sun, perhaps to reflect on, perhaps from other planets that are back behind it, but it is now picking up the rear as opposed to leading the way and giving new information to the sun. And it's going to be like that through July, I believe. So that'll feel different. It's more of our core shining energy that is going to now lead the way. When we get to the 3rd and the 4th, now Mars is finally in the last decan of Cancer. This is also a very slow Mars. And I mean, Mars has felt slow for a long time because it was retrograde in Gemini for so long. And then it did not just get going right out of the gate when it came out of retrograde. It's been slow for a while. So this is a Mars that it needs to feel good before it moves ahead. That's if someone has Mars in their chart, they need to feel good about making a decision before they act, which can be that to their detriment if they take too much time, right? So just be sure not to get caught up in your emotions as you are making decisions. Remember too that, this. So last month we had the trine when Mars was in the early days of Cancer. It was trining with Saturn, which Saturn and Mars, two of the malefics, work really well together. Anytime those two things are well aspected in a chart, that is a person who has a lot of drive, who gets things done, responsible, like just moves. So it's not making that aspect anymore. However, it is making a trine to Neptune, so we are much more now using our intuition. But with that trine to Neptune too, again, as I mentioned, like we have to just be careful not to get caught up in illusions, not to get caught up overly in our emotions. Now, on this day, because the moon is conjuncting the south node down here in Scorpio moons are kind of rough. They're like one of my top 3 kind of harshest moons to have because it can be very obsessive energy. This is the day before the eclipse, May 4th, so this is going to feel very intense on this day, and it's opposing Mercury too, so communication could be a little weird. And just look at this like big flag that we have happening. I mean, whenever I see this, man, I just love seeing how all of this beautiful geometry comes out in charts. Now we get to May 5th, eclipse day. Here it is, and I'll even put it, let me find the exact hours because it's kind of early in the day. Here we go, and let me do minutes. Let's go back a bit. Okay, so it's hitting like right at 0. Is that true? Let's go back a little more. Okay, let me go back by 5 minutes now. 5, 10. Let's see, where is this guy exactly hitting? Or is it at 14? Okay, there we go. There's the exact hit. May 5th at my time, 12:34 Central Time, hitting at 14 degrees 58 minutes. Right in the middle of the day. Now, this is also right just before the king's coronation. So I posted about how the astrology for King Charles III coronation is so interesting. And if you read the points that I made here, and I'll show you the chart as I read off the points. I'll put this over here. Okay, so this is the sort of chart that you just know. I mean, the royals have had an astrologer on staff for thousands of years at this point. They've always used astrology. But these are those kind of moments that I just go, oh my God, you just can't make this stuff up. You just can't. These days are perfect. And when you see these sorts of alignments, when I see these alignments come up in people's charts, I just go, oh my God, you had some ginormous thing happen on this day. So the inner ring is the king's natal birth chart. The middle ring is his secondary progress chart on the day of the coronation / eclipse. Remember that it's May 5th our time, but with the time difference, it's May 6th, their time. And the outer ring is the actual day of the eclipse and the coronation. I put it at 11 a.m., right when the coronation is supposed to start. So with this, remember that lunar eclipses, they finish eclipse season. Eclipse season has shaken our world up, shaken your personal life up, taken out old things, brought in new things, and starts us on some new path or part of a new path. And wouldn't you say that the coronation of a king who is a Scorpio with a Mercury in Scorpio and a moon in Taurus, a north node in Taurus, wouldn't you say that this would be the absolute perfect day for a lunar eclipse in Scorpio to happen with this man's coronation? So some of the things. King Charles is a 22-degree Scorpio sun. So the moon is going to align with his sun as he's getting ready for the ceremony. The ceremony takes place on his exact nodal return. So someone's node is their destiny in life, what they came here to learn. And Taurus is a very royal energy. We've had a lot of royal Tauruses when you go back through the royal history. So it is his destiny and his career to become some sort of royal. 10th house with a moon in Taurus. He emotionally feels it, embodies it. So that's taking place. The solar eclipse, which started off this whole shebang, falls exactly on his progressed north node here on this 29 degree. So that got it all going. And of course, we knew about the coronation before, but we don't know all of what's happening behind the scenes and like deals being made or all of the events on the day, the people and stuff. So I wouldn't be surprised if you got to know what was going on behind the scenes. Something happened on that day. If you also think about how Aries is the energy of the military and a military leader, and it has been said that King Charles is going to be the first king to wear his military uniform for this ceremony, which is not normal. So he is now getting coronated as he's going to become the military leader for the country. With Jupiter expanding that capacity, is that part of his destiny here? Venus is conjuncting the king's natal Uranus. So something's getting stirred up, and his Uranus is in the 11th house. So he is going to bring in something new to the people that he rules. There's going to be something up his sleeve that we don't know yet. And finally, this is so interesting. Okay, so as he's taking reign here, on May 1st, Pluto goes, is it May 1st? Am I speaking that wrong? When did, I think it is though. When did let's see, what day are we here? Yeah, okay. So Pluto has gone retrograde by here. Yeah, it goes retrograde on Monday. Okay, so Pluto is going retrograde and is going to come back and hit 29 degrees of Capricorn and sit on top of his moon here, which is just wild. To me, that's like one of these biggest points in here. So this is very powerful boss energy. And even, his secondary progressed Jupiter and Venus are all there in Capricorn as well. And the 6th house is all about embodiment, embodying that Capricorn boss energy. So it's going to be, we'll wait and see. Again, my question, what sort of plans does he have up his sleeve that he has not shared with us yet? Will be quite interesting. We shall see. So watch and see what happens in your life on May 5th. And then as we continue to go through, so it's going to feel good once that eclipse has happened. But moving forward, it's interesting, on May 6th, we have a yod between the moon, and it must, let's see, so 24 degrees, 28 degrees. Okay, so it must be a little bit earlier in the day that I was looking at for this chart. But we get a yod here at some point in the day between the moon, Venus, and let's see, the moon. Oh, that's because I went way too far ahead. I'm looking at this chart going, something is not right. That's why. Okay, let me go back here to May 6th. You always know when something's off. It's like, wait a second. And if we're here at May 6th, okay, here we go. Now I see it. Okay. The quincunx is this little energy. And a yod is when we have these two quincunxes. They call it the finger of God. It's a moment of fate happening between the moon, Venus, here at 29 degrees Gemini. Ooh, wonder what information that's going to bring. You'll feel very social on this day. And Jupiter over here in Aries. This is going to feel very intense. You're going to feel like something, even though it's the day after the eclipse, this will kind of be like the fallout from the eclipse. So perhaps something on the eclipse, let's say in your personal life, gets shaken up. On this day, you're probably going to know why that happened or what the result of that was. It's going to be a very intense day. Shall be interesting to feel. And then finally, Venus is going to move into Cancer. I'm really excited about this. I mean, I'm a Cancer rising, so I love Cancer energy, that very nurturing energy. And we still have Mars in Cancer for a little bit longer. We are still in Taurus season. We're still in the very feminine energy here. So this is going to feel nice before later in the year, in midsummer, when the nodes finally move into Aries, when Mars moves into Leo. Then the energy of the collective is going to flip and it's going to feel much more masculine. We're going to be thinking much more about the doing energy as opposed to the receptive energy. So soak in the receptive energy right now while you can. Now, when we get to May 9th, this is Sun-Uranus Day, which is also kind of interesting because it is trining over here to Moon in Capricorn. So it'd kind of be like the person who makes a lot of money, who loves living a bougie lifestyle. Perhaps they are also a Capricorn, or perhaps they have a Capricorn in their life running their business, running their money, helping them make all their money to live this lifestyle. Those two are going to be communicating on this day. And again, this could be a day. This would be the sort of day that you would get a surprise out of nowhere that hopefully if you had been doing your subconscious reprogramming work, your meditation, you have been working on building whatever it is you're building, hopefully this would be the sort of day when a gift would come out of nowhere. This kind of reminds me of, for example, when I was in college going through my Uranus square. My natal Uranus is down here in Capricorn. When it was going through Aries, which is in my 10th house, I was getting career opportunities out of nowhere, like tons of them. They were just coming all over the place. I didn't even have to do anything. It's like I just had to stay in the flow of it and keep saying yes and being open and receptive to it. And they just kept coming through. So look and see in your chart where Taurus falls, where this Uranus is sitting, and it would be in that area of life. Like for me, it's the 11th house. So it would be associated with perhaps an opportunity to speak to people. Maybe I'd get a really cool podcast gig or a gig to go and give a talk somewhere, or I'd meet a new group of people that I became really good friends or something like that. Like those would all be very, for me, 11th house Taurus things that would come out of nowhere. So check and see in your chart where that is. Could be an interesting day. And it's just going to remind us, like, when those sorts of gifts come, it reminds you that everything is going to be okay, that whatever your challenges are, you're going to be able to make it through. So the next day, May 10th, when the moon is, and on this time, it is exactly opposing Cancer here. But look, we still have this nice flag happening, these trines. So the south node to Venus, the north node and Mercury to Saturn. So all of those energies are working together, especially in the water signs with the little bit of earth. They're trying to remind you from an emotional sense, like, it's gonna be okay. You just got to keep going, putting one foot in front of the other. But on this day with the moon over here, not at home in Capricorn, the emotional side, opposing a Mars in Cancer, just be careful not to get stuck in your emotions on this sort of day. Keep going, keep moving. Then May 12th is finally when Jupiter makes it to 29 degrees here. I would not be surprised if on this day Jupiter brings back something that happened on the April 19th, 20th, first solar eclipse. If we see some news revisiting from something from that day, so you could do a little digging, go through some news clips of some interesting things that happened on that day and see what sort of new information we get about it here. We're also, the Mercury is almost we're just a couple days away from the end of Mercury retrograde. So maybe it could be, we get some, like a couple of crumbs of something, but not everything. And it's just a degree away of making this exact square to Pluto, and it's also now it's been squaring Venus for a couple of days, whereas the beginning of the month they were sextiling. So this is where in a chart, okay, it's going to, well, these two, okay, yeah, we can get to the end of the month. The square is happening between Jupiter and Mars. So yeah, whereas when Mars was at the beginning of Cancer and it was sextiling like Venus is right now, that energy, they were working together. Now you have kind of this immature Mars in Cancer inflating emotions too much, whereas this Jupiter in Aries energy is wanting to be the war hero. So you have like those two parts of your being in the collective kind of competing against each other. Now we keep moving. We have this nice Moon and Saturn trine Venus on May 13th. So this will be interesting. Like, if this was in someone's chart, they would have the inner emotions of a Pisces moon, but there would always be something holding them back from expressing it. Saturn comes on and limits things. So it'd be like, oh, no, you can't express that. I know you're feeling all these things. So that would be one of these people's challenges, is learning how to express their emotions. So perhaps we could feel that way in the collective on this day. And finally, we reach May 15th when Mercury turns back on at 5 degrees. That's going to be really nice. And then, I mean, this month, it's just like boom, boom, boom. Jupiter moves to 0 degrees and makes this exact square to Pluto with the moon exactly. I mean, this is the sort of astrology you just look at and go, how are we having so many of these moments all happen at once? This is why we have such crazy things happening in the world right now. It's just, you can't make this stuff up. We have the moon exactly hitting Chiron the day that this happens. So we will definitely see some weird news on this day. Even though Pluto is now retrograde and going backwards, now starting to reflect on these first few very Aquarian themes in the world, we're going to start to reflect on those things. Here, this is going to bring up some wound about these. Who knows? Maybe there's a story of, like, I've started seeing on Instagram, for example, all of these catfish accounts come up, all these fake accounts. It's just like out of nowhere, they've exploded. So who knows? We could see like a story about someone getting taken advantage of or something like that. Look out for those sorts of stories on this day. But okay, on the flip side of that, I do feel like this is going to be a very lucky day for people who have chosen to quote unquote leave the matrix and started to build their own thing, started to live their life from a new perspective, the perspective of freedom and sovereignty, taking responsibility, making decisions for yourself. I feel like this could be a really lucky day for those people. If you haven't done that so much yet, I feel like this could be a day with some big wake-up calls of sorts, especially if you are... Like if you're going through a nodal return right now, if you were born with a Chiron or a Sun, a Mars in Taurus, like if you have a lot of Taurus energy right now, you could go through some sort of big lesson if you haven't done a lot of your healing work yet on that day. So just something to keep out for. Keep a lookout for. We, on the 17th, then of course if the moon keeps going, it meets with the north node Jupiter and Mercury. So now it will emotionally reflect to us what we've been through in the last couple of days of these big hits. And we get finally the new moon on the 19th, where it's going to be at 28 degrees. So kind of interesting. Like we've had a lot of things happen at 29 degrees lately. This is happening at 28 degrees, so not quite the extreme of the sign, but still that strong Taurus energy, the last big Taurus energy that we'll have for a while. So soak it in on this new moon, set your intentions, whatever came through in this eclipse season, say, okay, I'm ready to keep moving. I'm clear. I have dealt with some of my stuff, let things go. Now it's time to move forward. On the 20th, the hits keep coming. This is going to be another intense day, I would imagine, because we have Mars, which is the traditional old ruler of Scorpio, opposing Pluto in Aquarius at 0 degrees. So especially if you have some strong placements at 0 degrees Leo or 0 degrees Aquarius or 0 degrees Taurus, Scorpio, like a little bit, not quite as much as these top three, but you're going to be feeling this day. I mean, I've been warning people who have this 29 degree cap, 0 degrees Aquarius for a while now. Hey, these are going to be very transformative times for you. And when that Mars makes that exact opposition, that could set off something for you in your life. Also interesting how this exact same day, Venus meets with Sirius, which Sirius is a very positive energy, a supportive energy for us. So it'll be a day where, yeah, there's some light at the end of the tunnel. Who knows? Maybe there could be with Pluto and Aquarius, maybe that's going to be a disclosure sort of day. Maybe we'll get some cool UFO news on that day. I would be looking out for that. That would be very cool. And then next day, boom, we make it to Gemini season, and we start off this Gemini season with both the sun and the moon in Gemini. Just keep watching how this Gemini energy shows up in your own life and in your own chart. For me, Gemini is the 12th house. Probably one of the reasons, I'll say one of the reasons I'm so interested in the occult, in neuroscience and astrology and spirituality. And this has been a huge theme for me in my life over this last year when we've had this lots of strong Gemini energy. Another reason is I have a very strong conjunction in the 8th house, which is occult sort of stuff. So makes sense that I have gotten into this, but just look in your chart, see where Gemini is, see how that energy shows up in your life, how it feels to you. On the 23rd, we have the moon meeting up with Venus. This should feel good on this day because it is exactly sextiling Uranus and Taurus. So that should feel really good. Jupiter will have moved to 1 degree. Thankfully, it doesn't stay at that 0 degree long, that exact square with Pluto, and it keeps going. And then what's so interesting here, this is when we're going to start to feel the flip into the masculine. The beginning of May, the season we've been in, has felt very feminine with all the Taurus energy. Now, watch for in the news. See if we start seeing moves being made by leaders, especially men, very masculine leaders. See in the news, like, is there more war news? Just more masculine stuff is going to start to come up once this Mars moves into Leo. But so on the 23rd, the moon moves over Venus, like reflecting back to us the last little bit of feminine energy. And then the next day it moves over Mars, signifying that switch into the masculine energy. By the 27th, the moon is going to oppose Saturn. And on that same day, if I get to the 27th, it is going to square the sun. Or I'm sorry, let's see here. The Saturn is squaring the sun that day. So, okay, moon in Virgo feels very picky. You feel like you can see all the dust around. Saturn in Pisces up here, though, doesn't care so much. As long as you kind of feel good about life, you're good. Sun in Gemini is very curious about things, kind of all over the place. I want to know this, I want to know that. Shiny object syndrome is very Gemini. So this could feel like a bit of a scatterbrained day. Now, luckily, we will have, the Mars and Leo energy. This is going to be the time to start tapping into this Mars and Leo energy because it leads from the heart. It needs to know what its heart feels like first. It is going to be squaring the North Node energy on this day, but this would be a day that I'd really tap into my heart to make decisions. Don't get tied up in the cleaning stuff. Sometimes you can over clean too, or you need to think, oh, I got to organize all this stuff before making a decision. No, on this day, if you are open to receiving and your heart is in the right place, you can see that you are building the dream, the vision long term. That's when you take action. Then the last couple days of the month, Jupiter does officially meet with the North Node on the 30th. So remember that the nodes take 18 months to move through a sign. Here we are just at the end of the North Node in Taurus. So at the end of May, we can really start to see the results of what we have learned in the land of Taurus. In Taurus lessons, which just as a reminder to go through them again, are being a selfless caretaker, being a mother, being receptive, creating new life, putting value to things. What do we value? We're going to see, okay, over the course of these last 18 months, what did we accomplish in that area of life? Did we increase our self-worth? Did we start to build something new? You're going to start to see the results of whatever you've learned over these last 18 months. We end with the moon in Libra, and then we enter June. June 1st. We're going to start off the month of June with a moon and the south node, which shall be interesting. So we will talk about once we get here, as Venus starts to move into Leo, when we have this Venus retrograde coming up over the summer. If you want to know more information about I think I did from March through August, March through September, that's what I did. I have a video on a horoscope from March through September. So if you go and watch that, you can see kind of what is coming up in the collective. And just to finish this off here, I would like for you, for the journal prompt for this month, to reflect on what you learned during eclipse season. So if you think about the time period between April 20th, go back and look at your calendar. See what happened right on that day, or like the day before or the day after, April 20th to May 5th. And reflect on what happened in those couple of weeks, what left your life, what came in that you want to continue on, or perhaps you learned a big lesson from what happened in that time period. And I'd also like you to reflect on how receptive you are in your life. How do you feel about your own self-worth? Maybe for a week, do a journal exercise where you really watch your thoughts and you notice when any judgments come up. Perhaps you're judging yourself. Perhaps you're judging others. Especially watch for if you are judging others who have something that you want. If you want more money, if you want to have a nicer home, or you want to buy something nicer, are you judging any of those aspects of those people who have accomplished those things or the things that you desire? Because those are the thoughts that are sending away the things that you truly desire. It's sending mixed signals to the universe, so the universe doesn't know what to do with that, and it cancels it out and nothing comes your way. Or if those thoughts are stronger, it's actually going to be hurting your energetic field, or just it's right, we think of either constructive or destructive energy. It's destructing your energetic field, where you want to build and strengthen those neural pathways and those energetic pathways in your field. That's what you want to strengthen. So work with someone if you need to on self-worth manifestations, and maybe talk to your therapist about how can I value myself more. We need you right now. I promise you, if you're watching this video, we need you in the collective. If you got something out of this video today, if you found it interesting, please like it, subscribe, send it to a friend, say, hey, I learned about this. I learned about my chart. Let's go and look at our charts and see some of the stuff that comes up. If you're interested in this sort of stuff, I would love to work with you in my chart readings course on May 7th. And I will see you for the next horoscope in June. Have a great one.